I'm now so happy to invite Brad Paige, CEO of Kennebunk Savings, our social media sponsor, to share a welcome and to introduce the New Hampshire talk speakers. And I also want to let Anne Marie and Phil know that they'll be kicking off as soon as this is over. So just to give you a heads up, here we go.
Hi, I'm Brad Paige, the President and CEO of Kennebunk Savings. We are excited to be a sponsor of the New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility Spring Conference. At Kennebunk Savings, we believe that we all have a role to play in helping our communities thrive. As a mutual banking institution, we take an active role in our communities and the organizations and causes that are most important to them. We support a local network of nonprofit organizations to make a meaningful impact, and we take action, leveraging our own resources and network to promote the greater good in our communities. Among all of the great work of our employees and our bank, I'm exceptionally proud of our 4-year effort to address substance use disorder and support recovery. From monetary donations to fund prevention and recovery services, to tapping the talents of our motivated employee volunteers, providing doTERRA drug deactivation kits free of charge in our branches, and recently receiving our recovery-friendly workplace designation from Governor Sununu. We strive to approach our social responsibility efforts by leveraging all of our resources. I thank each of you as attendees for taking an interest in our communities and helping to increase the social responsibility efforts of all New Hampshire businesses. And now it's my pleasure to introduce your next speakers, Erin Algood and Dr. Fiona Wilson from the Sustainability Institute at the University of New Hampshire, Anne Marie French and Phil Sletton from the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute, Dana Gilchrist of the Hype Agency, and Jennifer Perkins from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Thank you.
So we are very excited to once again share our very innovative New Hampshire talks. These are great topics, each one of them, and so really excited to hear from you all. For our attendees, the format of this is that you are going to hear from each one of our New Hampshire talks or a 5-minute highlight of their innovative talk via a TED-style presentation. You'll hear all 4 of those TED-style talks and have the option, once they're all completed, to enter one of their breakout rooms where you can learn more about their topic and have some interactive conversations with others in the room. You can also, when you go into one of those breakout rooms, you'll have the option to be able to jump out and check in on some of the other New Hampshire talks as well. But each one of those discussions are going to be, or those breakout rooms are going to be 30 minutes in duration, so you'll have some great insights. So now I am going to first invite Anne Marie and Phil to share their New Hampshire talk.
Thank you, Michelle. Can you hear me, I hope?
We can.
Great. Good afternoon. It's a privilege to be with you all today to discuss building economic resiliency and creating an inclusive recovery. While the COVID-19 crisis impacted each of us, it dealt a much harsher blow for many who are among the most vulnerable. The health and economic effects of this crisis disproportionately impacted Granite Staters of color, those with low incomes, and those whose employment placed them on the front lines of service. Inequities abound in this crisis, and the lessons are important. As we map a path forward, it's helpful to understand the circumstances many Granite Staters were experiencing before the pandemic and how the crisis further impacted their lives and well-being. Let's look back to the last economic crisis, the Great Recession. While that recession formally ended in 2009, New Hampshire experienced a long, slow, and uneven recovery that did not reach all Granite Staters equally. Many of the good-paying jobs lost due to that crisis did not return. The combination of shifting economic prospects and slow growth for lower wages that in some cases lost ground to inflation left some in precarious financial circumstances. This left some Granite Staters unable to build savings or save for a rainy day. A 2019 survey from the U.S. Federal Reserve found that nearly 4 in 10 adults nationally would not pay for an unexpected $400 expense with cash or with credit to be paid in full at the end of the month. Consider this in context with the swift onset of the COVID-19 crisis and the early fervor to stock up on food and home cleaning products, often at unexpectedly high prices. The effort to keep your family healthy and safe had suddenly become significantly more expensive, and many families continue to struggle to afford usual household expenses today. And as so many things shifted to an online format, those who were unable to afford access to the internet faced challenges with staying connected and accessing information. As a result, many children were unable to transition to remote learning and have lost significant ground in their education in the last year. Lack of connectivity impacted the ability of residents to apply for a job, to file for unemployment benefits, or rental or food assistance, or other support programs, not to mention the ability to stay up to date with public health information or have a virtual medical appointment. Going into this crisis, many Granite Staters were already at a significant disadvantage. People who never imagined they'd need public assistance suddenly found themselves depending on the safety net for survival. This crisis demonstrated the importance of ensuring a strong safety net is in place and ready to respond. This crisis also laid bare many areas in which our public health systems and other systems were fragile. It demonstrated the need for a health system that's well-resourced, nimble, and accessible to residents in all areas of the state. It highlighted the importance of an available workforce to provide home-based care and services for residents with health needs so they can remain in their homes safely. And it also highlighted the essential role that childcare plays in our economy and for the ability of parents to be able to work. As we seek to build economic resiliency and create a more inclusive and equitable recovery, here are 6 areas where we could make some meaningful progress. Affordable housing, to ensure that everyone has a safe place to call home. Healthcare and health systems, to ensure all Granite Staters can access healthcare and supports in all corners of the state, and that system is well-resourced and able to respond in times of need. Childcare and caregiving, to enable Granite Staters to work and ensure their loved ones are cared for. Education, from early learning to higher education and job training, to ensure education is accessible and affordable to all. Broadband, to ensure that all Granite Staters have access to the internet and at speeds that enable them to equitably engage in the economy and access opportunity. And finally, economic and financial stability, to ensure a strong safety net and that Granite Staters can achieve financial stability on their own to build savings and plan for the future. Progress in each of these areas will help us to be more resilient by addressing needs that have existed for some time and helping us to be better prepared for the unexpected. Progress in these areas will also produce positive benefits for the state economy overall. We can target these efforts to include an emphasis on equity and inclusion to ensure the recovery reaches Granite Staters with the greatest needs, and particularly those who've been most impacted by this crisis and those who are struggling to achieve economic stability before the crisis began. We can focus on reaching New Hampshire's children and targeting aid toward children and families with limited resources at home. By using the metric of eligibility for free and reduced price school meals and other measures, we can target aid to families and communities where the needs are greatest. We have before us an unprecedented opportunity. The availability of significant federal aid to New Hampshire will enable us to aim high, to shift our focus from surviving to thriving. Together, we can create an equitable, inclusive, and sustainable economic recovery that builds toward a brighter and more resilient future. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Those are all very important points to think about. So we really appreciate you sharing. Next, we'll invite Jennifer Perkins of the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation to share her presentation on Hindsight is 2020. Jennifer?
Thanks, Michelle. So I love the theme of this year's conference. I'm a practicing optimist, so silver linings, resiliency, and regeneration really spoke to me. But I think there's another word that's really important. It's an R word, and it's reflection. So I thought what I would do today is share some of my reflections on what allowed our organization to remain resilient last year and meet our mission. And my first reflection is a personal one. When I was promoted to Vice President of Administration a few years ago, I'd been with the foundation for a while, so I already knew the organization well, but this was really my first experience as a senior leader, and I was still growing in the role. Like a lot of new leaders, I had a bit of imposter syndrome, and I was building my confidence. But in 2020, there was no mentor or coach to turn to with the answers. We were all building this plane as we flew it. And I found all of that profoundly liberating. So with the kind of confidence that can only come from knowing that nobody else knew what to do either, I threw myself into figuring it out, learning, adapting, implementing, adapting again as the news of the latest data or the regulations and guidance changed. And now with that hindsight and that newfound confidence, I think back on the year that was 2020, and there was something that I think we did as an organization early on that helped us weather the storm. We recognized the importance of trust, empathy, and flexibility from the beginning. And when we made the decision to close our buildings and go remote, we started by acknowledging that this was not a typical work from home situation. I could have read a million articles on supporting your remote workforce, but none of those old rules on remote work applied because we didn't have a remote workforce. We had employees sheltering in place during a crisis. Oh, and they were also trying to work, and understanding the difference mattered. So we implemented a flexible work hours policy and gave folks the freedom to do their work when it made sense for them, recognizing our staff were now being asked to be full-time teachers and caregivers and toilet paper hunter-gatherers while working from homes that weren't previously designed to be workspaces at all, with the various challenges and distractions that come with all of that. We also conducted pulse surveys to check on how staff was holding up. And then we targeted strategies and resources to support them in the way that was most useful in the moment. So we knew that folks were under a lot of stress, but the stress was most often coming from things that we had very little control over. In fact, staff often told us that the routine and normalcy and sense of purpose in their work helped to smooth out a time when nothing was normal and everything felt out of control. We also heard people longed for connection. What we thought might be a few weeks turned into months and now over a year. To stay in touch with staff, I began scheduling virtual coffee breaks to check in and see how folks were doing. And I learned early on if I really wanted to know the answer to that question, I needed to ask it twice, because often the second answer I got was really different than the first one. So to stay connected, we increased the number of all staff meetings we had. We scheduled virtual happy hours. We played online trivia games, and we maintained our treasured traditions like our annual Halloween costume contest. We did it virtually instead. We relied on our staff Yammer page to create connections around cooking and binge watching TV shows and books and support for parents, viral photo challenges, and a place to share resources and reflect on the conversations about racial justice happening throughout the country after the murder of George Floyd. And when we started to hear that folks were struggling to cope with the isolation as the weeks turned to months, we created a group called the Self-Care Squad that meets regularly to lift up and hold each other and the organization accountable for promoting healthy self-care practices. We learned to honor and celebrate staff for their whole selves, not just the self they bring with them during normal business hours. I haven't seen the vast majority of our staff in 3D for over a year, yet I feel more connected to them than ever before. I know their kids and their spouses and their dogs and their cats. I know their hobbies, their favorite TV shows and books, their latest home improvement projects and their decorating styles. I know how they like to take care of themselves and when they're struggling to do it. I've been able to learn what's keeping them up at night and what brings them joy. What a privilege we've all had this past year to experience each other as humans and not just colleagues in this way. Lastly, one thing I wanted to share was that we decided to do away with our traditional performance evaluation process last year. Instead, we paused for that all-important R word, reflection. We asked folks what they were most proud of, what they found most challenging, and if there was anything that we could have done as an organization to support them better. Here's just a sample of what was the universal response to that question. Quote, "It would be hard to find a workplace that's been more supportive." And another, quote, "I feel closer to my colleagues than ever, and I haven't seen them in a year." And one last one, "I can't imagine a better employer, performance manager, and group of colleagues to go through this challenging time with." And you might be thinking, this all sounds lovely, but how did that translate into results? Well, with the support of our generous donors, we granted more money out to our critical nonprofit partners than ever before, including $40 million in CARES Act funds. 2020 changed the way we work. And those changes helped us have our most productive year ever, right when the community needed us to step up the most. Leading with trust, empathy, and flexibility wasn't just nice to do. I believe it was an essential element of our ability to support our nonprofit partners working on the front lines to reduce the pain and hardship for our most vulnerable neighbors. And it will be a key element of our post-pandemic future. I invite you to join me in the breakout sessions where I'll ask you to join me in sharing your reflections and silver linings from last year using one of the tools that we used to stay connected last year. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. I love the way you brought the silver linings in. Now we'll invite Erin Algood and Fiona Wilson of the UNH Sustainability Institute to discuss collaborating with emerging change makers for impact. Erin and Fiona, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be with all of you here today alongside Fiona Wilson. We're both from the Sustainability Institute at UNH, and I also am a consultant with my own business called Algood Strategies as well, and a proud member of NHBSR. So we're really excited today to be talking to you about the change makers that we are helping to educate and graduate from the University of New Hampshire. And in particular today, we're going to be talking about the Be Impact Clinic, a program that Fiona started a few years ago and has grown, and it brought me on a few years ago as well, and has grown tremendously over the last few years. So what this program is at the heart of it is an opportunity for students to be able to pair with companies who are seeking B Corp certification, recertification, or looking to improve their sustainability and socially responsible efforts within their companies. And actually, I see Robin Tyndall here from Hypertherm. They were a client last year. And I know there's a couple of other clients that we've had in the past as well. And really at the heart of this, what we're trying to do is give students an opportunity to learn the skills that they need in order to be amazing change makers and be able to do the work that companies are needing as well. And so we have created this really lovely program and have been able to, at this point now, graduate a good number of students, have many companies come through the clinic, and we've been able to really grow the B Corp community here in New Hampshire and throughout New England. I'm going to hand it over to Fiona to give a little introduction to herself, and then we'll give a little bit more details on what we'll be talking about in the breakout room.
I'm Fiona Wilson. As some of you may know, but I think many people don't know, it's a well-kept secret. UNH is really proud to be one of the leaders nationally in higher education in sustainability, and we really see it as a public university. We really see it as not only our opportunity, but really our obligation to help educate the next generation of New Hampshire citizens and workers, but also to contribute back to the state and to work with companies and organizations, as Erin said. I started the Be Impact Clinic 3 years ago now because we really saw two big demands. One, we saw that companies were really interested in improving their sustainability practices, and we also saw students were really hungry to get involved in the emerging B economy, the sustainable business economy. The B Impact Assessment, which is a free open source tool that any company can register to use, is, in my opinion, one of the most rigorous and comprehensive measures of what makes a sustainable company today. It's really like a free consulting tool that helps guide you through changes that you can make to your business to become more sustainable. And we just saw a real gap. Companies wanted to do this work, but didn't necessarily have the capacity on the staff, and students are hungry to get involved.
And really the program has, as I mentioned, just grown over the years, of those 3 years since Fiona started it. We started with 2 students and 1 company, and next semester we'll be welcoming in 7 companies and 28 students. So we've really been able to just see some tremendous growth throughout this program, and we are having trouble keeping up with the interest from local companies who are interested in joining, as well as students. So really and truly, like what we've been able to do is bring the students. We give them some real grounding in using the BIA, as Fiona mentioned, and working one-on-one with their clients. So they serve as student consultants, researchers, project managers, and it's really inspiring to see the work that these students are able to do and how they grow throughout the course of the semester. they grow in their confidence, they grow in their ability to work autonomously. And I had one student recently say that he really loved the fact that we just didn't really have a syllabus. Of course we do have a syllabus, but we really are more, focused on giving the students a really amazing experience, and giving them something that they have really no other access throughout the rest of their college career. And for the companies as well, we've seen time and time again, the feedback that we get from the companies is overwhelmingly positive. They sing the praises of the students, their professionalism, their ability to do this really high caliber work, in which they're helping companies really figure out how to improve their sustainability efforts by doing some deep research. They're digging into that B impact assessment and really figuring areas of improvement for a company. Most of the companies that we have come into the B Impact Clinic, they're already doing amazing work. Whether they're a company coming in who's looking to recertify, such as Stonyfield, or who was in the clinic last semester, or it's a company who's looking to certify for the first time, such as Laney and Liu, based in Exeter. And so those companies, what they're trying to do, they're already doing amazing work in the terms of sustainability and social responsibility. And the students are really helping them to push even further. And we know how vitally important it is in today's society to be really pushing the envelope when it comes to these different things. We desperately need young folks who are able to create real change in the world. And we have found a really powerful way of being able to do that.
So Erin, I think we're just about out of time, but just to say, hope you will join us in the breakout room. We'll be tailoring our session. We can talk more about the B Impact Assessment and B Corp certification, or we can talk more about the benefits and what it's like to be part of the clinic. So we hope you'll join us.
Yeah, and I just speak for myself, but I have just heard from so many of our NHBSR members who have gone through this B Impact Clinic that it has been an incredible experience for all of them. So if you have any interest in B Corp certification or just improving your sustainability efforts, these students are great at both. So check it out. And now, last but certainly not least, we have Dana Gilchrist of the Hype Agency on leading during crisis. So we are really excited about your session, Dana, and look forward to your TED style talk or New Hampshire talk. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. So I'm Dana Gilchrist. I am the founder and CEO of the Hype Agency. We're a marketing agency here in Salem, New Hampshire. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience, and similar to Jennifer Perkins, and how sort of leading through this crisis, how I was able to reshape our employee development, manage the team through a very difficult time, because there is no roadmap for what we went through this last year. I wanted to share some of our key learnings and and allow this next opportunity when we go into our breakout sessions to ask any questions of what we were able to do as well. So I primarily work in live events. So sporting events, special concerts, festivals, anywhere where you can gather. And so in March of last year, we were at South by Southwest when our client Facebook decided that it was not safe to be in a location anymore because of a infectious disease that was taking over the world. It was very new. Our calendars went blank for the first time in almost 15 years. And that was March 14th. I think I actually still have the newspaper headline stating that, how quickly it took over. Broadway went dark, 100 million. South by Southwest was canceled, 355 million. So it was when NBA and the MLB started making the calls that we saw a huge, tremendous hit. By March 16th, I had a plan. It was very difficult. It was a very difficult 24 to 48 hours of deciding what will we do to make sure that we come out of this stronger than ever. I knew they were going to come back. I knew that people needed to gather again, but I thought, just like Jennifer, that 2 to 3 weeks might be our pause, which turned into a year. So the real test of leadership over something like this, whether it's crisis in its many forms, is how you show up, and how, as the captain of the ship, you get that ship to continue to sail. So it's often, I think, leadership is tested when crisis hits, and it's how you're you establish those credentials through this time that your clients and your customers will see, as well as your employees, on how you're going to make it out. So I wanted to share some tips that sort of I led through, and again, without having that roadmap, but knowing that there would be a light at the end of the tunnel. So the one thing was staying positive and having a positive attitude. So I know it's super cliche, and anyone, I was screaming when someone would tell me to just stay positive, that we'll be okay, we're going to make it through this. But as an entrepreneur, and having that entrepreneurial mindset also makes you have this dreamer focus. And we knew that the world would be different after this. So maintaining that positivity within my team and encouraging my team to create new radical ways of doing business, of new ways of implementing processes, by showing our clients that we could adapt to this new environment rather than shrug from it or be, or make tremendous changes on how we do things. So, there's a management guru that says, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So I felt like if we all set our focus on that, we were going to be in a better place. The second thing was redefining roles. So, and I spent some time talking to other small business owners during this time. The focus was no longer looking at what your job responsibilities were and staying within those, but figuring out ways to attack all of the things that could be done during that time. What other ways could you develop relationships with your clients? We recreated the team that I have in-house to be our task force. And they knew going into it that they would be made up of talented, skilled employees that would have to branch outside of what was typical of their day, because we didn't have any events. There was no longer a time for us to sit around and plan. It was, how do we work through what needs to be done so that when we get out of this, we're in a better place. And it's forever reshaped the roles of our company. I think that now we lean heavily on having a more holistic view of how everybody works in the business, and can really take on those many different roles. Define your core values. So we all are different companies all throughout New Hampshire. I started this company 15 years ago. And even as a small business owner, it was always important to have those core values set out ahead of time. So if you don't have them now, when a crisis hits, it is going to destroy your company. Your culture needs to know why they're there, what their purpose is. And those core values are really our North Star. Again, I think I echo a lot of what Jennifer said, not even knowing what she was going to be talking about, but a lot of what we went into when we went into this was how do we recreate those core values? One of our core values, outside of accountability and respect and all those other things, is fun creates loyalty. So we meet every single day, and we've met every single day since since we left our office in March. On a Zoom call at 10 a.m. And some of those calls are focused on the events that are happening, and some we had nothing else going on. So we were creating the loyalty by having macrame lessons, or happy Zoom calls, or like these happy hours, or creating new ways of just checking in with one another, because it was a very difficult time. And to feel lost in your job, to feel like you don't have that purpose that you came into the team for, can be very difficult. So when you're feeling unmotivated, having those core values are incredibly important to your company.